So I'm Lauren. I have two children, one who's nearly 5, and then I've got a 10-month-old, and he's going to be 1 in November. When I fell pregnant at uni, everyone expected me to quit. There's no breastfeeding facilities at the uni I went to, like there wouldn't be a breastfeeding room. So I did often think like before COVID happened, how was I actually going to do this? Pumping and feeding at the same time, and then also like doing lecture notes, just any spare minutes. As soon as baby napped, as soon as baby went to sleep, I would immediately do uni work. I really struggle with breastfeeding. Um, I just kind of had to, no, I just had to push through because I didn't know anyone else who breastfed, had no group, and there wasn't any volunteer services because it was all closed down because of COVID. Um, and I remember like waiting every month, like just gotta make it to the next month, make it to the next month, and then I think it hit about 6 months, 5 months, and I just got a lot better. My second latch really easy in hospital, and started feeding from basically as soon as he was born. So it's kind of a perfect journey. So I'll start with my midwife. For my second community midwife, she I think just expected me to breastfeed. And I didn't get any information during pregnancy and breastfeeding, so I breastfed my first. And then going into hospital, I was kind of just left to it, which was fine. I didn't mind because I did have a good journey. With my first, um, really struggled for days, and I was kept on the delivery suite because I lost a lot of blood. But I had a really nice midwife, and I always remember, and I actually saw her giving birth to my second, and she remembered me and my first, and she stayed for ages trying to get my first to feed. She would like walk up and down with him as well, so I could get a little bit of sleep. However, I think with my first, obviously the staff were rushed around, so although they helped me latch, when I then left hospital, that was a struggle because someone had been helping me latch the entire time I was there. But then coming out, which was great because he needed feeding, he would cry so hard. But obviously, just getting him fed in that instance in hospital was what I needed. But then when we got home and he didn't latch and I didn't have anybody to show me, that was also. So in my brain, I was like, well, I'll just get to 3 months, and I'll just get to 6 months. And then by the time it was a year and 2 years, just kind of fall into a pattern. And it was like, well, he'll wean at some point. Because that's, I think, the one thing I did learn about breastfeeding. It's not just a feeding tool, it's an everything tool. It's like one of the greatest parenting tools we can have. In terms of like it comforts them, it gets them to sleep. Well, when I got pregnant, I didn't even it didn't even click in my brain that breastfeeding was a thing, which is really strange. I mean, as a child, you're given a baby doll and it's always got a bottle. So I didn't see any representation for breastfeeding. I didn't see anything like that. So in my brain, when I was pregnant and someone was like, "How are you going to feed your baby?" It never actually clocked that, oh, there's actually a choice here. I sort of did the learning about breastfeeding. I did my own research. So the hospital I gave birth at did actually used to do an antenatal breastfeeding class you could go to. And that was quite helpful. So it sort of like showed the normalcy of it. But then I still didn't have anybody real to talk to outside of that. And I think it's not just how much support, it might be cultural or in terms of ages, things like that. So I think there's a lot of influences on breastfeeding. It's not in the media, and when you're younger, you follow a lot of media. So if you're not seeing it, you're probably not going to do it. I think the thing about Wolverhampton is that is quite a deprived area compared to other places in country. So finding groups that are volunteer led is a lot more difficult. Finding groups that are even supported by the council, again, quite difficult. Does feel like a bit of that's the one thing I noticed coming back. Does feel a bit of a postcode lottery around here, and I do think that has a part to play in the like low breastfeeding rates that we have. I do remember someone telling me that actually, like, unfortunately, there's no money to be made in breastfeeding. That's also one of the problems. Everything we see is marketed. Breastfeeding never is. So it's one of those things that has to come from conversations, has to come from experience. Because it's not directly in our faces all the time. You turn the TV on and there's formula adverts, there's bottle things and loads of other things for children, but what you don't ever see. And I do often think that if you maybe just had one advert, the NHS put one advert out there with a breastfeeding mother, it would save the NHS so much money. And I don't see why they would never do that. Actually, what would do parents a lot more of a favour is just trusting their instinct, which in this day and age is actually really hard to do because we're never allowed to trust our instinct on anything. Um, I feel like that's the only time I managed to relax as a parent is when I finally let go and was like, just got to do what I got to do, what feels natural. As soon as I wasn't trying to force him into a sleep and force him onto a bottle, try and do all this, I felt like I enjoyed parenthood then.